Hello and welcome back, says the doorman as well. Let's go loot those things now that we have the authority of Rune and Lutz on our side. I don't think anyone's gonna tell us no. So, you know, robbing the place blind, perfectly okay. And we're gonna need that money too. And Rune is going to need that robe, which means it's a good thing we didn't try to buy one when we had the chance. Very nice increase in defense power too, just in case he was not tanky enough with those dual shield benefits. Well, if we're not gonna buy armor, what are we gonna do with it? Well, weapons, of course. I don't often buy weapons, but in this case they're going to be fairly helpful. Kyra, for example, uses slashers, but she only starts with one, so I want to get a second one for her. And I already mentioned that I want a second Thunderclaw. Of course I can't get that here, but that's what teleportation is for. Now, it's not that equipping shields on Kyra is useless, I'll get into that later, but for most of the random encounters we're going to deal with, it's better for her to have the extra attack available. Also, yes, I guess I should recover my stuff. That is expensive, though. Well, it's all relative, of course. It's a JRPG, so you get more than that in one random encounter. Also, in old JRPG style, no matter where you go, everyone uses the same currency. That's starting to fall out of favor, especially in online games, but you can still see that every now and then. Now, I mentioned getting a second Thunderclaw, but I can't actually afford that yet. So the first place we're going to go is a place where we don't really need it. And that I'll deal with you a little bit later. Trust me, we'll see what's in there. But first, we have a little more driving to do. This place is fairly sprawling once you unlock the Ice Digger. If I wanted to, I could probably make a whole session about exploring the whole place and explaining what is in every corner of the map of Desolus, but I think I'd rather do this instead. We have 3 optional side areas total, and this video I plan to deal with 2 of them. Well, those are some angry moles. There's really not much to say about the random encounters in this cave, so I think instead I'm going to talk a little bit about Kyra. In my opinion, she has the most interesting character design in the game. She's not great at anything. Most of the time in combat, anything she does is not as good as what a specialist character could do. She has attack techniques and spells, but she's not as good with them as Rune is. She can attack the enemy party with slashers, but she doesn't have any attack skills with with them to boost her power. She has recovery skills and techniques, but she doesn't have SAR like Rika does, which reduces her utility in really punishing situations. Because of all these things, I used to think that she was a bad character. But after I've learned some things and taken some time to look at how they work, I've changed my mind. The reason for this is being able to do the right thing in any situation is very strong. Chaz also technically has that versatility with more punch, but he's a lot more restricted by resources than Kyra is. For example, her Medis healing skill is not technically unlimited, but I've never seen it run out over the course of a dungeon. You just saw it right there. It is a full heal for a party member, and yeah, there's so many of them. Oh, I'll go back to that little talk later, but right now we have the most shameless optional callback that I've seen in the entire game, and that's including the side dungeon that references Phantasy Star 3. Remember how I mentioned muskcats before? From Phantasy Star 1? If I remember correctly, there was no sign of them in Phantasy Star 2. And of course not in 3. But here they are. I'm gonna get demonetized, aren't I? I tried looking up the meaning of the word shuttlecock, and the only reference I could find was the object of play in badminton. So I'm wondering if maybe that was another translation issue. It's not explicit, but this may very well be the same meow as the one that helped you in Phantasy Star 1. In that one you had to feed it a special item to make it grow in size and grow wings to take you to the penultimate dungeon. And a weapon that you could give it, the best in the game, was the Silver Tusk. Being a claw weapon, Rika can use it, and it is it's... Okay, attack power aside, it deals Chaz damage. That alone is enough to make it incredibly strong. The way elements work when you're dual wielding is that it simply chooses the more effective one. Well, that wasn't very smart. I just used up the money that I needed to buy the second Thunderclaw, so I hope you will excuse me. I have one unnecessary encounter to do. I was hoping I could avoid this sort of thing. Well, I am now a scrub who power grinds in order to avoid dealing with difficulties later. I don't know what else to say. As for why I need a second Thunderclaw if only one of them gives access to the element I want, well, I kind of mentioned this earlier, but it gives you a lightning attack when used as an item. And when dealing with robots, there are certain characters in my party, Rune in particular, who do not have any particularly good answers to robots. As for why I couldn't have the entire party use the Thunderclaw as an item, well, the game is a little smarter than that. Once one character uses a particular item, even if it's reusable, the other party members cannot access it that turn. Alright, so let's go back to that facility that we promised we'd visit again earlier. And this is quite a greeting, isn't it? This is one of those bosses with random encounter music. And it is not a good idea to hold back when dealing with this. It's not that there isn't a boss at the end of this dungeon, there is. But the guard at the front door is much stronger. As it should be, really. So the reason I'm having a little trouble with this is... well, first of all, Kyra has a lot of options, so sometimes figuring out the right thing to do is not easy. Oh wow, that was damage, alright. Also, it's strong against fire. Okay, well, it uses fire breath, so that's not too difficult to explain. And despite what I just said, I decided to have Chaz hold back a little bit on the Chaz damage. Honestly, I should not have done that. But it's okay, because Rika also has access to Chaz damage, which makes her double slash like you saw. I think it's worth mentioning that this game has a damage cap of 3 9s. So we're not at the point where the damage cap is an issue, and this game does not scale so hard that we're likely to ever run into that as a problem. But it should give you an idea of what kind of damage the game expects you to be able to deal, given the tools available through the engine. You can get to this place while Raja is still in your party, in which case Raja will yell at you and say, "No, it's the Garuberk Tower, I told you already." I wish there was a way to move an item within your inventory so that you don't have to scroll quite that many little tabs to get to some of the things you pick up later in the game. Although, that is at least partly my fault. After all, I have not been selling or discarding things as I should. So that seems like a thing to do between this video and the next one. You see, I tried to find an option to move it, but no such luck. Also, the game gave me trouble when I tried to discard stuff, as it should. I think accidentally throwing stuff away is much worse than having a little trouble throwing something away when you want to. Now, since robots tend to resist fire, napalm shot might not be so great here. That's also why I held off on buying the fire sword. And this is a fairly unusual thing. Those are indeed the same protect bits that you can sometimes encounter in the Ice Digger on the overworld map. I have no idea what a Drager duel is, though. Unfortunately, even though it's an element that robots are weak against, the Thunderclaw used as an item doesn't deal amazing damage. It's just better damage than Rune would have been able to deal otherwise. I think it might be a fixed amount of damage rather than anything dependent on your mental stats. Oh, okay. Well, this is why we go to technological dungeons. We get the best stuff for our androids. The Pulse Falcon. It's like a pulse laser, but it's better. And the pulse laser was already very useful. So let's take a look at that, and also at a handy property of the Thunderclaw when equipped on Rika. Since certain attack skills carry the element of whatever gear you have, stuff like Disrupt can become, like that. And all of this adds up to our team being very well equipped to handle random encounters like this. Ooh, that Chaz is not looking so great there, though. So, going back to Kyra. Now, I mentioned how good she is at keeping our party well stocked on resources thanks to her essentially free healing. She doesn't provide Raja level healing, but it is very helpful. And unlike Raja, Kyra can usually find a way to deal decent damage in any given encounter. Her ability to switch to dual shields and stick with magic attacks makes her good at weathering boss fights, as well as dungeons that are weak against her magic. I guess what I'm getting at is there's no situation where she will have dead turns, and I think that is a fairly significant contribution in the long run. For some reason, my brain was trying to make me say confrontation. And that's really all we need to take care of most of the random encounters in this dungeon. I was actually rather concerned because the protect bits, if they hit one of the flimsier characters, could do a lot of damage, but that's really the only thing that could possibly give me trouble. Aside from going the wrong way and realizing, hey wait, this isn't a dead end with a treasure chest in it. I need to fix that issue. I think the reason that I like Kyra's design so much, gameplay-wise, is I haven't seen many cases where a character who can do a lot of things but isn't great at any of them turned out to be actually really helpful to the party. So I want to give the game designers some credit for pulling that off. Now there's a new enemy. You may have noticed that I'm showing off more encounters than usual for this dungeon. And I decided that at this point we have a fully functional party. Well, we technically had that with Raja, but I think the timing is good, especially since this is a low-stake dungeon, to show how everything works generally when pushing through a dungeon that's fairly dense with random encounters that can hit decently well. Which is, the party has access to a lot of attacks that hit the entire enemy party, and are skills or simply attacks that happen for free, so they don't really deduct anything from other kinds of moves that we might need later. That being said, I'm not going to show the entirety of an encounter with two enemies that get killed off right away. At least, not anymore. I think you get the idea. Okay, more Android stuff. Let's see what that thing looks like, what its description is. Oh, okay. I guess they couldn't spell out titanium that time. But actually, that's a thing that I find interesting as well, which is, we've seen titanium gear, and it's a few steps behind what we're using right now. So to have that be the state-of-the-art thing for where we are in the game, well, that's because it's an alloy. And in real life, alloys of more than one metal tend to be much better than having pure something. I think that's a pretty nice touch. Come on, show me those dead ends. Repair kits. I should explain those. Androids, when knocked out in battle, will recover on their own at the end, albeit at one hit point. If you want to recover during battle, then you have to use a repair kit. I believe those restore a lot of health. It might even be a full restore, but you cannot buy those anywhere. You can only find them. So do not be too terribly careless with your androids. That being said, we have ample evidence of how tough androids are. I don't think I've ever seen one knocked out in a single hit. Oh, hi, you look fairly intimidating. So how do we deal with this? Are we going to show off its actions? Heck no! I don't want to do that. That'd be a little silly. Besides, we're gonna see another palette swap of those things later on, I'm certain. Oh, well that's a little disappointing. I guess I can't just macro attack and expect to deal with any... well, oh! You know, Chaz's crosscut was starting to fall behind a little bit, power-wise. We kind of saw in that battle with the front gate that he was not doing as much damage as the other characters with that thing. Even though that's supposed to be his single-target high-damage stuff. Ray played, though. Now that we have that, things have changed. Why is that? Well, you'll see. And yes, I know we're about to fight a boss, and since it's a single target thing, the slasher attacks are not going to be amazing. I wanted to change the party order instead of using the top command, and the reason I want to do that is, with dual shields, Kyra is actually very, very tanky. More so than dual shield Rune, and definitely more tanky than Chaz or Rika since they're not using shields, so she's now a frontliner. How's that for versatility? Alright, let's go. I'm not convinced, sir. Oh ho! Well, we'll talk more about what he just said right after this battle. So, what are you gonna do? There's no one that really needs healing. So yeah, I actually did not particularly remember whether he was more susceptible to fire or cold attacks, so I was a little confused. But it turns out to not be a big deal. Oh! Okay, Ray Blade. It is an attack, single target, that does Chaz damage, and it is a skill. Its base power is very high. And all of a sudden, he's ahead of the pack again as a boss killer. What can I say? The designers went to very great lengths to make sure that against dark enemies like this, he would be the wrecker of the team. And I kinda like that. Yeah, I don't know why that guy was so confident that he could take us on. So Dark Force. It is very mysterious. It seems to operate outside the normal rules of reality sometimes. It's very powerful. But despite all of the things that it's capable of, being killed is a major setback for it. So having someone talk about Dark Force like we didn't do anything to it, even after what happened, is a very big deal. Because of the plot stuff, I do not consider this a filler episode. That's next time. See you then!